The janitor walked slowly down the long empty corridor of the alien research station. His boots made small echoes on the metal floor. Everyone else had gone for the day, but his duty was always the same: clean up the places no one cared about. He was human, and here humans were not scientists or leaders, just workers doing jobs the aliens did not want. He did not complain. He liked silence, but tonight something felt different. The lights flickered once, and he thought he heard a sound, like a faint heartbeat, coming from one of the locked labs. He hesitated before the door. No one came here anymore. This section was abandoned, full of failed projects and broken machines. His keycard was not supposed to open it, but when he swiped it, the door slid open with a heavy groan. Inside, the air was cold, filled with the smell of chemicals and dust. In the center of the room stood a glass container filled with glowing blue liquid. At first, he thought it was another forgotten experiment, until his eyes focused on what floated inside. It was not a creature, not a body, but a single alien hand. It was pale, long-fingered, and perfect, as if it had just been cut from someone alive. The janitor froze. He wanted to walk away, but his feet would not move. Something about that hand made his heart beat faster. He leaned closer. For a second, he thought he saw the fingers twitch. He shook his head and laughed nervously. Maybe he was just tired. He turned to leave, but then the sound returned. Not a heartbeat, more like a pulse, echoing through the liquid, steady and alive. He stepped back toward the container, pressing his hand on the glass. The fingers inside twitched again, this time clearly. He jumped away, fear mixing with wonder. No one had said anything about a living experiment being left here. He whispered to himself, "This is impossible." But his curiosity was stronger than his fear. Every night after his shift, he returned. He cleaned the room slowly, pretending that was his job, but in truth, he came to see the hand. He began to talk to it, his voice soft in the empty lab. He told it about his day, about how the aliens ignored him, about how humans were seen as weak here. He knew it was foolish, talking to something that could not hear him, but it made him feel less alone. And sometimes when he spoke, he thought he saw tiny movements, fingers curling just slightly as if answering him. Days passed and the hand started to change. It was small at first, almost invisible. A faint glow spread from the wrist, tiny threads forming like veins. Tissue began to build, slow but steady, like a seed sprouting in fast motion. The janitor could not believe what he saw. He knew he should report it, but deep inside, he was afraid that if he told anyone, they would destroy it. So he kept the secret. One night, as he sat on the floor near the container, he closed his eyes. He had fallen half asleep when a sharp sound made him jump. The water inside the tank rippled violently, light flashing through the room. He stood up quickly. The hand inside moved fully, the fingers flexing, curling, uncurling. His breath caught in his throat. Then, slowly, the wrist began to extend, bones and skin forming in the blue liquid. His heart pounded so loudly he thought the whole station could hear it. He stumbled backward, nearly falling over a chair. This was no broken experiment. This was something alive, something being born again. His mind raced with questions. Who had started this project? Why had it been hidden? Why from only a hand? But no answers came, only the terrifying, beautiful sight of life forming right before his eyes. That night, when he returned to his quarters, he could not sleep. The image of the twitching fingers haunted him. He thought of reporting it again, but then remembered how the aliens laughed at him before. A janitor imagining things, they would say. No, he would keep this to himself. He would watch and see what it became. The next evening, he rushed back to the lab. The liquid glowed brighter now, almost like a heartbeat, filling the room with a rhythm that matched his own chest. He pressed his hand against the glass again, and this time the fingers inside reached back, pressing weakly against the same spot. His breath caught, his skin shivered. For the first time in his life, something alien touched him. Not with words, not with weapons, but with a silent connection. The station around him remained quiet, the other workers unaware of what was happening in the forgotten lab. But the janitor knew. Something impossible was unfolding. And though he could not explain why, he felt he had just stepped into a secret that would change everything. Not just his life, but maybe the fate of all humans and aliens alike. He leaned closer to the glass, whispering, "What are you?" But deep inside, he already knew the answer. Whatever it was alive. And for reasons he could not yet understand, it had chosen him as its first witness. And then, as the lights flickered once more and the corridor outside echoed with distant footsteps, the fingers twitched again, this time stronger, sharper, as if trying to speak. The janitor stood frozen, his heart racing, staring into the tank. The hand was no longer just a hand. It was becoming something more, something that would not stay hidden for long. The next days passed like a dream for the janitor. Each time he entered the old lab, the glass tank showed something new. What was once only a pale hand had now begun to change, piece by piece, as if it were building a body from nothing. The wrist grew longer, the arm stretched, veins glowing faintly beneath the skin. Strange patterns of light swam inside the liquid, like living threads weaving flesh together. He could not understand it, but he could not look away. At first, he thought it would take years, but the growth was faster than anything natural. Every day the hand became more complete. Fingers thickened, nails formed sharp and smooth, bones clicked into place like pieces of a puzzle. Soon the outline of a shoulder appeared, followed by the curve of a chest. His hands trembled as he wiped the tank clean to see more clearly. It was no longer only a hand, it was the start of a person. He told himself this was impossible. Experiments like this required teams of scientists, machines, and endless care. Yet here, in this forgotten room, something was being born without any help but time itself. It was as if the alien hand carried memory inside it, rebuilding what it had once been. And still, he kept the secret. The station was full of guards and researchers who hated mistakes. If they knew this was happening, they would end it before it could finish. He could not allow that. He felt, strangely, that this life belonged to him now. Sometimes he sat for hours, watching, whispering quietly to the growing figure. "You're not alone," he said. His words filled the silence, echoing softly around the lab. He told stories about his childhood on Earth, about how people used to laugh at him, about how small and invisible he always felt among aliens. He did not expect any answer, but it gave him comfort. And each time he spoke, bubbles rose inside the tank, the fingers twitching faintly, almost as if she was listening. One night, when he returned, he gasped out loud. The body inside had formed almost completely. Skin glowed pale silver, smooth like glass. The face was still unfinished, eyes closed, but the figure was no longer just parts. It was a girl, curled like a child inside the blue liquid. His chest tightened. She looked fragile, like she could break at a touch, but also powerful, as if energy flowed beneath her skin. The lights in the lab dimmed suddenly, machines humming without being switched on. He stepped closer. The girl's chest moved once, faintly, like the smallest breath. His heart stopped. She was alive. He pressed his palm against the glass, whispering her name, though she had none. "You can do it. You can live." The days that followed were the hardest. The girl's body twitched, struggling as though fighting against the liquid prison. Her fingers stretched out, always reaching toward the glass where he stood. More than once, he thought she would stop moving forever, but then she would glow brighter, her chest rising again. Each time, relief swept through him like a storm. Finally, the moment came. He walked in to find her eyes open. They glowed faintly, like moons trapped in her skull. She blinked slowly, confused by the world, then turned her gaze toward him. He froze. For one endless second, he forgot how to breathe. She was looking directly at him. Out of everything in the universe, out of all the things she could have seen first, she saw him, the human janitor, the lowest of all workers. His throat went dry. He wanted to speak, but no words came. Slowly, she lifted her hand inside the tank, pressing her fingers against the glass. He did the same, placing his palm opposite hers. Warmth spread through his skin, even though thick glass and liquid separated them. It was as if her energy reached out to him, binding them together. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but only bubbles escaped. Still, he felt the meaning without words. She was not afraid of him. She trusted him. He swallowed hard, whispering, "I'm here. I won't leave you." After that night, everything changed. She watched him every time he entered, her glowing eyes following his movements. When he spoke, she tilted her head, trying to copy the sounds. He began teaching her simple words. Light, hand, friend. Her lips moved clumsily but slowly. She repeated after him. The first word she ever said was "you." His eyes burned with tears when he heard it. But not everyone was blind to what was happening. A few guards walked past the corridor one evening and muttered about strange power surges in the old lab. The janitor's stomach twisted with fear. If they discovered her, they would call her dangerous. He cleaned faster, locked the room tighter, hiding every trace. He could not lose her, not now. Late one night, alarms flickered for a moment across the station, only to vanish again. The janitor rushed to the lab, finding the girl glowing more brightly than ever before. She pressed against the glass, her body trembling. Cracks spread faintly across the container. His heart pounded. Was she trying to break free? Was it safe? He did not know, but when her glowing eyes locked on him, all fear vanished. Her lips shaped words again, weak, broken, but clear enough. Stay. The janitor staggered back, tears filling his eyes. She had spoken, she was alive, and her first memory, her first connection, was him. As the lab filled with faint humming and the glow of her power lit his face, he knew nothing would ever be the same again. Something greater than him, greater than this station, had just been born, and it had chosen him as the first person it trusted. And far away, in the silent halls of the station, shadows moved. Others had started to notice the strange life inside the abandoned lab. It would not remain a secret forever. But for now, it was only him and her, the alien girl, born again from a single hand, and the human she had seen first. The girl grew faster than he ever thought possible. Each day her body became stronger, her skin brighter, and her eyes more alive. The janitor visited her every night, sitting by the glass tank, speaking to her in soft words. She learned quickly, repeating his words in her strange voice, sometimes broken but always clear enough to make his heart race. When he said light, she pointed to the lamp. When he said friend, she touched her chest and then looked at him with a smile that was almost human. He never thought he could be important to anyone, but to her, he was the only person who mattered. She had no other memory, no other teacher, no other world. The first time she managed to say his name, his knees went weak. She whispered it through the water, clumsy and soft, but he heard it. He pressed his hand to the glass, and she did the same, her glowing fingers almost overlapping his. In that moment, he felt something he had never known before. He was needed. But the station was not blind forever. Strange energy surges began to spread across the halls, lights flickering, machines humming by themselves. Workers complained about unstable power, and whispers of a hidden experiment grew louder. Some guards searched, but they never looked closely at the abandoned lab. The janitor kept it spotless, pretending it was just another forgotten room. Still, he felt the danger creeping closer each day. The girl also felt it. Sometimes she grew restless, pressing her palms against the glass as if she wanted out. Free? She said once, her voice trembling. He shook his head quickly. Not yet. They will not understand. She frowned, repeating the word slowly. Not understand. Her glowing eyes seemed sad, and he hated himself for keeping her locked away, but he knew the truth. If the others saw her, they would destroy her. She trusted only him. When he entered, her face lit with joy. When he left, she pressed her fingers to the glass, watching until he disappeared. She copied his movements, trying to learn how to smile, how to wave, how to laugh. Sometimes her laughter was strange, echoing too sharp, almost like a song, but it filled the room with warmth. He laughed with her, and for a few moments he forgot he was just a janitor. But not everyone ignored him anymore. One night, as he walked back from the lab, two alien researchers passed him in the corridor. Their voices were low but sharp. There is talk of something waking in the old wing, one said. An abomination, a failed project that should not live. The other hissed, if it exists, we must destroy it before it grows. The janitor froze in the shadows, his fists tight. They were talking about her. He hurried back, his chest pounding. When he opened the door, she was waiting. Eyes glowing brighter than ever, as if she sensed his fear. He leaned close to the glass and whispered, "They don't want you. They want to end you." She tilted her head, confused. He pressed his palm against the barrier. "But I will protect you. Always." For the first time, something strange happened. Her hand glowed with bright light as she pressed it to the glass. A spark of energy jumped between them, not painful but powerful, filling him with warmth. He gasped, stumbling back. The glass shook slightly, humming under her touch. She smiled gently, as if showing him she was not afraid. But he was afraid. If the others saw this power, they would never let her live. And yet he could not stop coming. He spent more time with her, teaching her more words, teaching her about kindness, about promises, about hope. She listened closely, repeating him like a child, but her voice carried strange strength. Hope, she whispered one night, glowing brighter. Promise. Then came the day it almost ended. He was sitting near her, telling her about Earth's sky, about blue clouds and stars, when the door to the lab opened suddenly. Two alien guards stepped inside, their eyes scanning the room. The janitor's heart nearly stopped. He jumped up quickly, blocking their view of the tank with his body. "What are you doing here?" one guard demanded. "Cleaning duty," he said quickly, holding his mop tightly. "This room was forgotten. I was ordered to keep it clear." The guards looked around, suspicious. The girl pressed herself against the glass silently, her glowing eyes hidden in the shadows. He prayed they would not notice. Finally, the guards muttered something about wasted time and left. The door slid shut again. His knees almost gave out from relief. But the girl was not calm. Her body trembled, the water glowing fiercely around her. She raised her hands, and a wave of energy shot through the tank, making the glass crack faintly at the corners. The janitor shouted, "Stop! Please stop!" She froze, staring at him, her breathing heavy. For the first time, he saw true fear in her eyes. Not fear of the aliens, but fear of losing him. He stepped closer, placing his hand on the glass. His voice shook, but he forced himself to smile. "It's all right. I'm here. I won't let them take you." Slowly, her trembling stopped. The glow faded, and she pressed her palm to his again, whispering one word softly, "Safe." That night, as he walked back to his quarters, his thoughts twisted with worry. She was growing stronger, far too strong to hide for much longer. If the guards returned, if they saw her power, it would be the end. Yet when he remembered the way she smiled, the way she said his name, he knew he could never betray her. She was not just an experiment. She was alive, learning, feeling, trusting him with all her heart. And though danger closed in from every side, he felt something stronger than fear, something he had never felt before. For the first time, he had a purpose. She was his secret, his responsibility, his friend. And he swore to himself, no matter what happened, he would protect her from the world that wanted her gone. But deep in the silent halls of the station, the whispers were spreading. Others were searching, and it was only a matter of time before the secret they shared would be exposed. The janitor could no longer deny it. The girl inside the tank was not just alive, she was powerful. Her glowing hands, her strange energy, the way machines around her hummed when she moved, all of it pointed to something far greater than a normal life. He often asked himself if she was even safe to be near. Yet each time he thought of leaving, he remembered the way she whispered his name, the way her eyes searched for him when he entered. She trusted him, and that trust chained his heart to her. One night, when the station was silent and the corridors dark, he sat by the tank, speaking softly. She had learned many new words, though her sentences were still broken. "You, my friend," she said, her lips trembling as if each sound cost her strength. He smiled and nodded. "Yes, I'm your friend." Her eyes glowed brighter, and then she surprised him. She pressed her forehead against the glass and whispered, "Safe with you." He wanted to believe her, but he could not ignore what he had seen. That day when the guards entered, she had almost shattered the glass. If she had, the whole station would have known. He leaned closer and whispered, "You have power, but it's dangerous. If they see it, they'll try to hurt you." She tilted her head, confused, then shook it slowly. "Not danger for you." Her hand glowed faintly as she pressed it to the glass. For a moment, warmth spread through him again, filling him with calm. It was as if she was showing him her heart, violent for others, but gentle for him. Still, the whispers across the station grew louder. He heard workers complain of sudden blackouts, doors jamming, machines flickering with strange light. The researchers blamed old systems, but some spoke in low voices about a secret project waking again. They called it a mistake, a curse, a weapon that should never breathe. Each word stabbed into his chest because he knew they were talking about her. The girl also seemed to sense the tension. Sometimes her dreams shook the whole lab, waves of energy spilling from the tank like silent storms. Once, he found her curled inside, glowing so brightly it hurt his eyes. When she opened them, she looked at him with fear. "Dark, coming," she whispered. He grabbed the glass, whispering back, "I'll stop it. I'll protect you." But deep inside, he wondered if he was lying to both of them. One evening, something happened that changed everything. He was telling her about Earth, about blue skies and oceans, when she suddenly pressed her hands against the tank and gasped. A flood of images rushed into his mind, flashes of burning cities, alien armies, skies torn apart by fire. He stumbled backward, clutching his head, his heart racing with panic. The visions stopped as quickly as they began, leaving him gasping for breath. She looked at him with glowing eyes full of sorrow. "Me? Destroy," she said softly. His throat went dry. She had shown him the truth. She was not only alive, she was dangerous enough to bring ruin. Perhaps that was why the aliens had abandoned the project, why they left her here to fade away. But she had not faded. She had returned. He stood in silence, staring at her trembling figure. She pressed her hand to the glass again, her voice breaking. "Please, no leave." The sound of her begging struck deeper than fear. He stepped forward and pressed his hand against hers, whispering firmly, "I won't. I don't care what they say. You're not a monster to me." She blinked, as if shocked, then gave the smallest fragile smile. But their secret could not last forever. The very next day, he overheard a group of high-ranking aliens speaking near the control hub. Their voices were sharp with anger. "Energy surges are spreading. Something is growing in the old labs." Another hissed, "It must be the failed subject. If it has awakened, we must end it before it becomes unstoppable." His blood ran cold. They were planning to kill her. That night, he rushed to the lab, panic in his chest. She saw his fear before he spoke and pressed to the glass. "What wrong?" she asked. He clenched his fists, whispering, "They know. They're coming for you." For the first time, anger filled her face. Her hands glowed so brightly the water boiled around her. "No! Take me!" she cried, her voice echoing like thunder. The glass shook violently, small cracks forming at the edges. He shouted, "Stop! They'll hear you!" She froze, her glowing body trembling, then slowly pressed her forehead to the glass again. Tears floated in the liquid around her. "Scared," she whispered. He pressed both hands against the tank, his voice shaking. "I'll protect you. I swear it. But you must trust me. You can't fight them yet. Please." She closed her eyes, her glow dimming slowly until the water calmed again. When she opened them, she whispered one word, full of hope and fear. "Promise." He nodded quickly, pressing harder against the glass. "I promise." Outside, footsteps echoed faintly down the halls. The guards were moving closer each night. He knew it was only a matter of time before they came directly to this room. But as he looked at her, glowing softly, watching him with trust no one else had ever given, he made his choice. He would fight for her, even if it meant his life. And as the lab grew silent again, the girl whispered words that burned into his soul. "They come for me, but you stay?" Her glowing eyes searched his face, waiting for his answer. He swallowed hard, but his voice was steady. "Yes, I'll stay, always." In that moment, the bond between them was no longer just secret friendship. It was a vow, forged in danger and trust. And soon, when the aliens came to take her, that vow would be tested in ways neither of them could yet imagine. The alarm started without warning. Red lights flashed through the corridor, and the sound of heavy boots thundered closer. The janitor knew at once. They were coming for her. His heart raced as he rushed into the lab. She was waiting, her glowing body pressed against the glass, her eyes full of fear. She already knew. The whole room shook with her trembling power. He ran to her and pressed his hand to the glass. "They're coming. Listen to me. You must stay calm. If you fight, they'll kill you." She shook her head, her lips moving fast. "No, take me." Her hands glowed brighter, cracks spreading across the tank. The janitor panicked. If she broke free now, everything would be lost. "Please," he begged, "trust me. I will not leave you." The door burst open. 4 alien guards stormed inside, weapons raised. Their leader pointed at the tank and hissed, "Contain the subject, now." The girl screamed, a sound so sharp it shook the walls. The liquid inside the tank boiled, waves of light flashing. The guards fired their stun weapons, but the energy bolts fizzled in the air before reaching her, bending away as if her power rejected them. The janitor stood in front of the tank, spreading his arms wide. "Stop! She's not a danger," he shouted. The guards ignored him, pushing forward. One of them struck him hard, knocking him to the ground. Pain exploded in his chest, but he crawled back up, forcing himself between them and the girl again. "If you want her, you go through me." The leader sneered. "Foolish human. "Do you think we fear you?" The guard raised his weapon. The janitor closed his eyes, ready for the shot, but before it came, the girl released another scream. The entire tank exploded with light, the glass rattling dangerously. Energy surged out, knocking the guards back against the wall. The janitor shielded his face, his ears ringing. When he looked up, he saw her eyes glowing like fire, her body shaking with power. For a terrifying moment, he thought she would unleash everything and destroy them all. "No," he shouted desperately, reaching out to her. "Don't! Please, listen to me." Her trembling slowed. She looked at him, her eyes softening even as the air cracked with energy. She whispered one word, "Safe." Then her glow dimmed, the water calming again. The guards recovered quickly, their faces twisted with fear. "It's worse than we thought," one hissed. "We must take her before she awakens further." Before the janitor could stop them, heavy machines rolled into the room. Energy nets shot out, wrapping around the tank. Sparks crackled, locking her inside even tighter. She pounded on the glass, calling his name in a broken cry. "Stay! Please, stay!" His chest tore apart hearing her voice, but strong arms grabbed him, dragging him away. He fought, kicking and shouting, "Leave her! Don't touch her!" But they slammed him to the floor. The girl screamed again, shaking the whole station. Cracks spread across the ceiling, lights shattered, but the machines held. Her glowing body flickered weakly, and then she collapsed inside the liquid, too drained to fight more. The guards locked the tank with heavy seals, attaching it to a hover platform. One of them spat, "She will be destroyed before she becomes a threat." The janitor struggled, his voice breaking. "She's not a threat, she's just a child." But no one listened. They lifted the tank and began to move it out of the room. The girl pressed her glowing hands to the glass, her lips trembling. "Don't leave," she whispered faintly. He crawled forward on the floor, his hand reaching out uselessly as they carried her away. His heart broke as her glowing eyes stared back at him until the doors closed between them. Silence fell after the guards left, broken only by his ragged breathing. His body ached from the beating, but the pain in his chest was worse. They were going to kill her. He had promised to protect her, and now she was in their hands. He punched the floor, tears burning his eyes. "I swore I'd keep you safe," he whispered to the empty room. Hours passed, or maybe only minutes. Time felt strange in his grief. Then he heard footsteps. A young alien technician entered quietly, carrying tools. She froze when she saw him, beaten and bleeding. Her eyes flicked to the empty platform where the tank had been. "So it was true," she muttered. "The subject is alive." The janitor grabbed her sleeve desperately. "They'll kill her. Please, help me." The technician hesitated, fear in her eyes. "You don't understand. That creature is dangerous. She was created as a weapon, built to destroy. If she grows, she will burn everything." The janitor shook his head violently. "No, she's not a weapon. She's a girl. She trusts me. She's more human than any of you." The technician pulled her arm free, but his desperate words seemed to shake her. She whispered, "They've taken her to the high-security chamber. No one escapes from there." Then she left quickly, afraid to be seen. The janitor sat in the silence again, his mind spinning. He could not let this be the end. She had called his name, she had begged him to stay, and he had promised her. Even if it meant breaking every rule, even if it meant dying, he would not stop. She was his responsibility, his friend, maybe the only soul in the universe who truly saw him. He staggered to his feet, pain shooting through his body. His voice was low but filled with steel. "I'm coming for you," he whispered into the empty corridor. "I promised, and I will not break it." Far away inside the cold prison chamber, the alien girl lay weak and silent, her glow fading. But in her heart, she held on to one fragile hope, that the human who was her first memory would come back for her. And deep inside her, a spark of power waited, ready to rise again when the time came. The human sat in the cold cell, his back against the metallic wall, his wrists still sore from the rough cuffs. Every hour that passed felt like a slow death, but he kept his mind sharp, thinking about what the alien girl might be doing. He had saved her life, but now he was trapped as if he had committed a crime. The guards outside whispered about him, sometimes laughing, sometimes shaking their heads in disbelief. To them, a human saving an alien was not a noble act. It was dangerous, even shameful. On the other side of the station, the alien girl moved quickly through dark corridors. She kept her hood low so cameras would not recognize her face. Her heart beat fast with fear. But stronger than fear was her anger. How could they imprison him? He had risked everything for her. Without him, she would have been dead. She clenched her fists, her claws scraping against her own palms. Her mind replayed the moment he had pulled her from death's grip, the way he had not cared about their differences. That memory gave her strength. She finally reached an old storage bay, hidden and forgotten. It was a place she had discovered as a child when she wanted to escape from the strict rules of her people. Dust covered the floor, and the faint hum of old machinery echoed like ghosts in the empty space. Here she began her plan. She activated a small device, one she had stolen from her father's chamber long ago. A blue holographic map appeared, showing the entire prison section where the human was being kept. Her eyes followed the glowing lines, studying every corner, every entrance, every blind spot. She knew she could not fight an army, but she did not need to. All she needed was speed, silence, and courage. She whispered to herself, "He saved me. Now I will save him." Meanwhile, the human tried to rest, but every time he closed his eyes, loud footsteps would echo in the hall. The guards would sometimes stop at his cell, sneering, calling him weak, telling him humans should not interfere in alien matters. But he did not respond. He knew words would not change their minds. His only hope was the girl. Somewhere deep inside, he trusted she would not abandon him. Back in the storage bay, the alien girl armed herself. She picked up a shock blade, small but deadly, and strapped it to her leg. She carried a flash sphere, capable of blinding guards for precious seconds. Then she took a deep breath and pulled up her hood again. The time for waiting was over. She moved silently through the corridors, each step taking her closer to the prison section. But just as she turned a corner, she froze. 2 guards were walking toward her. Her body stiffened, but she forced herself to stay calm. She pressed against the wall, he waiting for the perfect moment. As they passed, she slipped behind them like a shadow. Her hands moved fast. One guard fell with a silent strike to his neck. The other collapsed after a sharp twist of her blade. She dragged their bodies into the dark, her chest pounding, but her face cold with determination. At the prison control room, 2 officers sat at their consoles, watching security screens. They never noticed the faint hiss of the door sliding open. In a flash, the girl was inside. She threw the flash sphere. A burst of light filled the room, and before the officers could even cry out, she struck them down. Their screens flickered. Alarms beeped faintly. But she moved quickly, shutting down the camera feeds one by one. Now the path to his cell was clear. She hurried through the hall, her feet barely touching the ground. She stopped at his door, her hand shaking as she entered the code she had stolen from the control system. The door slid open with a metallic groan. The human looked up, his eyes wide. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. But there she stood, breathing hard, her hood falling back to reveal her fierce, glowing eyes. "You came," he whispered, his voice low and rough. "I told you I would not leave you," she answered, her voice trembling with emotion. She rushed forward and unlocked his cuffs. His hands were free at last, though weak from hours of restraint. He grabbed her arm, both to steady himself and to make sure she was really there. But their moment was short. From the end of the hall, alarms began to blare. Red lights flashed, and heavy boots thundered against the metal floor. The guards had discovered the bodies. They were coming. The human clenched his fists, his strength slowly returning. The girl handed him a weapon she had taken from the guards. Their eyes met, a silent agreement passing between them. They were no longer savior and saved. They were partners, ready to fight side by side. Together they ran down the corridor, the sound of pursuit echoing behind them. Every corner, every shadow, every locked door tested their will. But the fire in their hearts burned stronger than fear. He had saved her life once. Now she was giving him back his freedom. And both knew this was only the beginning of something far greater than themselves. The hall was silent. Only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. The human stood at the center, his hands tied, his body bruised, but his spirit unbroken. Across from him, the alien queen sat on her high throne, her golden eyes watching him. She had once called him weak, unworthy, just another fragile creature from a dying world. But now, after everything, even she could not deny what he had done. He had saved her life, fought enemies that even her own warriors feared, and protected her people when no one else dared. The whispers among the alien council grew louder. Some demanded his punishment, others whispered that he deserved honor. The queen's face was unreadable, but her hands gripped the arms of her throne tightly, as if struggling with her own thoughts. The guards pulled the human forward. Chains clinked against the floor, but he walked straight, refusing to bow. His eyes locked with the queen's, and for a moment, it felt as if only the two of them existed in that giant hall. The council leader raised his voice, announcing the crimes he was accused of: breaking laws, touching the sacred bloodline, daring to stand as equal to a queen. Each word was like a knife, yet the human did not look away. When they asked if he had anything to say, he spoke simply, with a calm voice that echoed in the silence. He reminded them of the times he had fought beside their warriors, the wounds he had taken to shield their people, and the blood he had spilled for their survival. He told them that he never acted for reward or glory, but because it was right. The queen shifted on her throne. For the first time, doubt showed in her eyes. She remembered how he had stood by her side when even her own commanders abandoned her. She remembered the moment he saved her from death, carrying her when she was too weak to stand. And she remembered the night when her life changed forever, the moment she realized he was not like the others, not just a human, but something greater. Her chest tightened, and she rose from her throne. The hall froze. No one expected the queen to stand. Her tall figure towered above all, her long robes flowing like liquid gold. She walked down the steps slowly, each movement heavy with meaning, until she stood face to face with the human. The guards looked uncertain, unsure if they should move, but she raised her hand and they stepped back. Her voice was low, but it carried through the hall like thunder. She told the council that laws were written to protect the people, not to chain them to blindness. She said this man had done what none of them dared, and that his courage had saved not only her, but the entire empire. The council leader argued, reminding her of ancient rules, of bloodlines and traditions that could not be broken. But the queen's eyes burned with fire as she silenced him. She declared that sometimes destiny chooses a path that no law can predict, and destiny had chosen this human. Gasps filled the hall. Some were shocked, some angry, others in awe. The queen lifted her hand, and for the first time she touched the human's face gently, breaking every barrier between species, every wall of pride. She announced before all that he was no longer a prisoner, but her protector, her chosen one, bound not by chains, but by honor. The human's chest tightened, not from fear, but from something deeper. He had been called many things before: janitor, soldier, prisoner, but never protector of a queen. His eyes softened for the first time, and he nodded without words. The hall erupted into chaos. Some shouted in protest, others cheered. The queen did not care. She turned and walked back toward her throne, but this time she did not walk alone. The human walked beside her, still bruised and scarred, yet holding himself taller than ever before. The sight of them together was something no one had imagined. A queen of an empire and a human who had once been nothing. The council could argue, the people could whisper, but history had already changed in that moment. As they reached the throne, the queen paused. She turned once more to the crowd and made her final declaration. She promised that as long as she ruled, courage would matter more than blood, loyalty more than titles, and honor more than laws. Her words burned into the minds of all who heard them. The human stood silently by her side, his heart pounding, realizing that his journey was not ending here. It was only beginning. And as the crowd slowly bowed, one by one, he knew that no chain could ever hold him again.